Welcome to Wild Breakaway with Mike Greenlay. I'm Audra Martin. It had been 17 days since the Wild were here on home ice because they were on the road for a very impressive road trip, hoping to keep that momentum here in their first game back against the Washington Capitals, a team, unfortunately, that came into this game having won the last 7 meetings against the Wild, and they make it 8 in a row here, a 5-2 loss for the Wild.
Yeah, and Washington definitely want to get back on the horse here and start winning some hockey games. They got Tom Wilson back in the lineup, who is not only a player that they count on in different situations from a physical standpoint, but also an emotional leader, and he got them fired up. But the Minnesota Wild, coming back from a long road trip, sometimes there's a little bit of a relaxation there. And even though the Wild pressed a little bit in the first period, they didn't press enough. They didn't get enough opportunities engaging their defensemen, and there was some defensive zone coverage off the rush that they just didn't clean up. But what do great teams do? Well, great teams don't lose 2 in a row in regulation. The Wild have not lost 2 in a row in regulation all season long, and we'll see if they're able to continue to be one of those teams, because so far this season they've found ways to win. Whether they started slow, started fast, whether they scored a lot of goals or scored a few, the Wild have done a great job of engaging throughout the game and eventually either winning or getting at least a point, and we'll see if they can come back and bounce back against the Vancouver Canucks.
When you think of the Capitals, you obviously think Alex Ovechkin. The Wild did a good job keeping him relatively quiet tonight, but it was Dmitry Orlov who was a big factor for the Caps. 2 goals and an assist here tonight. The Wild continuing to be strong on the PK, and that's not easy against this team. They go 2 for 2 on the penalty kill tonight, and 1 for 6 on the power play. They have 8 power play goals in the last 9 games, but this is their first regulation loss on home ice since March 13th. And as coach said after the loss, we got spoiled how well they were playing on the road trip.
We just weren't sharp. I mean, the passes weren't tape to tape. They were bouncing. We just, some guys were not as good as I'd expected them to be, so it's a weird thing, because I thought we played as good as them, but they are the best team in the league scoring off the rush, and they proved it again tonight.
So here's a look at what's next for the Wild. It's another home game, another chance for 2 big points against the Vancouver Canucks, a team we saw at the start of that extended road trip, and it was the Canucks who came out on top 5-2. But the Wild know what's in store, and what's in store is a team with a lot of young talent that have so far been a surprise at the top of the Pacific Division right now, playing some great hockey.
Yeah, but they're now finding what it's like to be teams that live on the road. They've lost a couple of games in a row here. They're, I think, 1-1-2 in their last 4, which is a part of a road trip. So all of a sudden, when you start going on the road and you don't get the matchups you want, things get a little bit more difficult. Elias Pettersson is a tremendous young talent for the Vancouver Canucks, and the Minnesota Wild fans will get to take a look at a guy that they're starting to compare to Wayne Gretzky, at least in part, with the way he sees the ice and the way he sets plays up. So we'll see if the Minnesota Wild can contain him. They weren't able to contain him as well in the first meeting, but the Minnesota Wild are a very good hockey team, and because they're a very good hockey team, if they can bounce back here, they won't get 2 losses in a row in regulation, something they haven't incurred all season long. You keep doing that, you're going to find yourself well over 100 points, which is where the Wild want to be.
Always the goal.
Always the goal, absolutely. So.
All right, well, it's game 2 of the 3-game series between the Canucks and the Wild Thursday night, and the Wild hoping to even things up at a game apiece. We'll see if they can get it done in a few nights. We look forward to seeing you then. For Mike Greenlay, I'm Audra Martin. Thanks for joining us here on Wild Breakaway.